The Day of the Spare Keys, published by Free Spirit, by Damon Yeargain. When you're as absent-minded as I am, odd things tend to happen. For example, the time I got gas at the local Shell station. As part of my morning ritual, I dashed into the Quickie Mart for coffee. Moments later, cup of ambition and pastry in hand, I hopped back into my car and drove off. Instantly, a horrible metallic clank erupted from somewhere behind me. I slammed on the brakes and jumped out. What just happened? Had I hit someone? Ran into an unseen object? Warning bells rang inside my brain as I raced to the rear of my vehicle. There, stretched along the pavement, was a long, black tube. Confused, I followed it with my eyes. To my gas tank! I shook my head in disgust. How could I be so stupid? I'd driven off with the fuel nozzle still affixed to my car. The force of my mighty four-cylinder had ripped the hose clean off the pump. That one was on me. But the day of the spare keys, that was not my fault. True, I did leave my keys in the ignition, but that's what you're supposed to do at the car wash. I had a hot date lined up for that night, and I took my car to Sponge's to regain some of its irresistible charm and luster. About 20 minutes after leaving my car, one of the attendants interrupted my phone scrolling by waving a towel at me. "Oh, my car is done?" I asked. "Yes." "Great," I answered, jumping out of my chair. He mumbled. I stopped. He lifted his yellow ball cap with the Sponge's patch in the front and ran his hand through his thick black hair. I thought you said it was done." "Si. So I should go get it?" "Yes." Again I began to make my way to the door when his hand caught my arm. He held up a finger and then walked off, presumably to get a coworker. He came back with a short, stout man with a thin black mustache. I assumed he was the manager, as he was the only one who worked there who wasn't wearing a cap. "Excuse me, sir," he said. I was the one who now said, "Yes." Do you have a spare?" "Tire?" I asked. "No, key." "Why?" Beads of sweat began building under my arm. "The keys got locked in your car." "What? You don't got a spare?" "Sure I have a spare. Back at my apartment." You may be wondering how that could happen. Don't automatic locks tend to prevent that from happening? Well, I chose to save some money and not purchase a car with a smart fob. I was now regretting that decision. After haranguing with the manager, he finally agreed to lend me a set of wheels so I could fetch my keys. He led me to a beat-up, dirty van that had faded blue letters on the side that spelled out SPONG. I guess the E and the S had been lost around the same time the illustrious marketing machine had last been washed. The Spong Mobile died 6 times in the 3 miles to my place. The last of them occurred just up the road from my apartment building, so I hopped out and jogged over to the front door of my complex. Mrs. Nieder, our on-site manager, was not out on her porch, which meant that she was most likely either napping or out having tea with a friend. I rang her call button, but as I suspected, there was no answer. The building had push buttons that would dial the residents on their cell phones. I pressed the button for Kayla, who lived on the first floor directly below my apartment on the second floor. She was very cute, and I'd thought about asking her out. I suppose it's a lame excuse, but I was afraid she was a vegetarian, and if we went to dinner, I might be put into a very compromising position of having to eat my vegetables. No answer at Kayla's. I tried the last resident in our fourplex. Again, no answer. I backed away from the building and looked up at my apartment on the second floor. I'd left my window open. If only I had a ladder. Then I remembered a guy from a few houses down from my apartment building cleaning his gutters last weekend. I went and rapped on his door, but the only answer was the deep bark of what seemed like a very big dog. Thinking the owner might be out back, I walked around to the gate. It was slightly ajar, so after I called a few times, I slowly pushed the gate open, hoping the guard dog was not out back. No dog lunged for my jugular as I got the gate fully open. The shed door was open, and there, gleaming in the sun, was the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. A ladder. Maybe I'm rationalizing, but I believe that just as a starving man has the right to steal a loaf of bread, it's perfectly permissible to borrow a neighbor's ladder without consent when your keys are locked in your second-story apartment, provided, of course, There are no large dogs there to stop you. Besides, I had every intention of bringing it back. I gave the ladder a tug once I'd set it up under my window. It seemed secure enough, and I started to climb. I'd kind of forgotten about my fear of heights until vertigo and pangs of nausea hit me. "Don't look down," I repeated to myself over and over again with each passing step. I almost made it, too. I was just 2 rungs from my window when I heard, "What the hell are you doing with my ladder?" I've always heard that your entire life flashes before your eyes at the end. For me, however, what flashed was the image of the priest from Hunchback hanging onto the edge of a terrace off the cathedral as my left foot slipped off the ladder. This image was quickly followed by the words of Mr. Clark, my 10th grade English teacher, explaining that the symbolic meaning of that fateful scene was that as the priest looked up at the Quasimodo from where he clung to the last vestiges of his life, he grasped in final irony that he had caused his own demise. Now I know what you're thinking. The image was some sort of Freudian slip, my subconscious trying to tell me that I was to blame for my current predicament. But again, I ask you, how could any of this possibly be my fault? "You have no right to come into my yard and take my ladder," my neighbor shouted, apparently disagreeing with my point of view. I didn't answer him. I couldn't answer him if I tried. I couldn't speak. I couldn't utter a sound. I could not move. I didn't even have the wherewithal to put my foot back onto the rung from which it had slipped. All I could do was cling on to that metal ladder with sweaty, slippery hands and hope. My silence seemed to make my friendly neighborhood ladderman even angrier. "Come into his yard and take without permission" quickly turned into trespassing onto his property and stealing. "Leave him alone," a voice called in my defense. "Can't you see he's scared of heights and can't move? Derek, is that you?" Kayla, the girl who lived beneath me. At this moment, I really, really, really liked her. What was the reason I never asked her out? "Are you okay?" she asked. I tried to answer, but no sound came out. "Can you move?" This time, a grunt did manage to escape my lips. There was a sudden vibration in the ladder, which at first scared the hell out of me. Then another. Then another. That's when I realized they were Kayla's footsteps, my damsel coming to rescue me from my distress. It was her calm, self-assured voice that got me down that ladder. She let me in through the front door, and eventually the whole thing got sorted out. But the embarrassment didn't end there. I couldn't find the spare keys in my apartment. Why? Because that morning I couldn't find my main set and had used the spares instead. So the keys now locked in my car were, in fact, the spares. So where was the main set? Well, in my foggy, pre-coffee state that morning, I'd put them in my pants pocket before taking my shower, and then forgot that I'd done that. When I ransacked my apartment in search of the missing main keys, it never occurred to me to check the pants I was wearing. My main set had been in my pocket through this entire ordeal. Oh, and about the date? I didn't go on it. You might say I found someone a little closer to home, like, say, someone in an apartment just beneath mine. And here we are, 6 months later, having an anniversary dinner at a steakhouse. She's not a vegetarian. She does, however, feel the need to remind me that those green things I keep pushing to the edge of my plate aren't just garnishes. They are supposed to be eaten. Who knew?